Wow, I totally messed up this whole thing. Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. This is a good line right now. Sometimes you have to say, step aside, coffee. This is a job for alcohol.
Oh, boy.
Everybody is saying in the city of Seattle today. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
What up, dude? Yeah, sleepless in Seattle for a lot of Seahawks fans last night. The Seahawks got their asses handed to them in a hat. And the San Francisco 49ers, boy, do they look fucking good. We were just talking about that before we got going this morning. If you're waking up like Thomas at UWL this morning and getting ready to take part in the program, take our poll question. Go to our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney or on our Facebook group page if you're one of the 250 plus members of our Facebook group page, and let us know of the four teams now with the best records in the NFC. The Niners, we just talked about that, and we'll be getting into this game coming up quite a bit. The Cowboys, the Eagles, or the Minnesota Vikings. Which of those four teams do you guys think has the best shot, the most legit shot to win a Super Bowl? I'll tell you, we disagree a little bit right now. I got to say the 49ers at this particular moment in time. I know Philly's got the better record, but geez Louise, that defense is ferocious. And Brock Purdy does, Chad, just enough to make sure that the 49ers are in the right positions. I am smitten right now with this team. What are they, on a 7-game winning streak? I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a genius. The defense is as good as any defense in the NFL. And I'll tell you, as we're going to talk about throughout the program coming up, when it comes to wintertime football, December, January, February football, you want that defense more than you want a good offense. You really do. And this 49ers team, they are scary. They are a scary good team.
Yeah, since the Christian invasion, Christian McCaffrey came in. They've won 7. They've won 7 in a row. Yeah, no, I mean, they're obviously my team, and I'm all about the 49ers, but I do think the Eagles are still the more well-rounded team on all three phases. Arguably, I would say the 49ers maybe have a better defense. Offensively, I think the Eagles have a better offense, but I think the difference is the special teams, where the Eagles, I think, have a bit of an edge there. But I think it's going to be it could be a good collision course here, and that'll be a good matchup if that ends up going that way, depending on how everything's seeded. So I would say Eagles right now. I would say probably the one with the least. What were the 4 teams? It was the Eagles, the 49ers,
Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings, and of course, yeah, Cowboys, 49ers, Vikings, Eagles.
I think the Vikings would be last on my list.
Oh, okay.
Personally, I think them and the Cowboys are kind of neck and neck, but that's me.
Dallas has a better defense again. They've got Micah Parsons. Dallas has got definitely a loaded offense, even without the quarterback being all that good, because I'm not a big fan of Dak Prescott's. But this is the question of the morning. Which of those 4 teams, Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, Minnesota, do you think is the best in the NFC right now and has the most legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl? Coming up this morning, we're going to go back over a number of things as well, Chad, that happened last night. It was kind of a fast and furious night in Wisconsin sports. We had the Badgers taking on Lehigh. We'll talk about that game. Did not look good for Wisconsin to start off, not at all, but they end up pulling it off, and we'll tell you how that worked out. The Milwaukee Bucks got absolutely rolled in Memphis, and this is a game that we thought could go Memphis's way. They were 2-point favorites, and you understand when we break this down exactly why that was the case. It was not close and never was. And then we've got to look ahead too, Chad, because yesterday we made it like an official proclamation. We've got a big party. We got to look ahead to the 29th of the month. Now, I've still got to put a Facebook event page up to make sure that we invite everybody. But if you haven't been watching, if you haven't been listening, if you haven't been following the program on social media, you might have missed. We're giving away a ton of stuff thanks to Alaskan Amber, New Glarus Brewing Company, and of course now Stack's Family Farms, because they came to the fold with a whole bunch of really, really fun prizes to give away on the 29th of the month. So we'll talk about that as well. Morning Wood's up and at it. He says, one thing for sure I know is that in East Dakota, is East Dakota will blow it eventually, no Super Bowl. What? Oh, we're talking about Minnesota. Got it.
I was just going to ask you what that meant.
I couldn't figure that out for a second. I'm sorry, Morning Wood. I was reading that in real time. I was trying to be glib. It didn't work out well, but that's cool. You're right. Minnesota, this is going to be the Packers fans' mantra forever. They're just not going to win a Super Bowl. That's just never going to happen.
Okay, this is very optimistic here. Seahawks lose 1 more. Commanders lose 3 quarters. Giants, Niners, Browns, Cowboys, or Giants lose 3 quarters.
3 out of 4.
Vikings, Colts. Oh, 3 out of 4. Okay, well, yeah, I thought we were doing fractions here. Whatever. Packers win, and they're in. I think
this is Kyle Cable.
being facetious? Is Kyle Cable being facetious here?
I don't think so. I think Kyle is giving you an actually legit way that the Packers possibly could make this year's postseason. Listen, last night's loss for Seattle actually did help the Packers. So by them losing and the Packers not doing anything, it did help. Last evening, I will say this. I'll recap briefly because I'm sure that a number of our audience members were actually listening, at least I hope they were, to my first segment with ESPN's 105.5's John Papadopoulos. I said that this upcoming Monday, it's Monday Night Football versus the Los Angeles Rams. That 7-point spread right now, that looks like barbecue chicken. I really do think that the Packers are going to gobble up some Ram meat here on Monday night. I think listen, Green Bay can get in, of course, but to see this team go on a 4-game winning streak, guys, we got to be frank. This is not a team that looks like they are poised in any way, shape, or form to go on a 4-game winning streak. It just doesn't look like it. You've still got Miami. You've got Detroit. I think there's still a game with Minnesota. This is not an easy schedule. It really isn't. And Detroit's got something to play for. The Minnesota Vikings, even if they don't win anything in the history of their whole fucking team, they still want to beat the Packers. Okay, that is one of those rivalries that Minnesota feels great about when they win. And they've already beaten the Packers at home and did so quite handily. So I don't think that it's a possibility. It's it's a possibility, but I do not think it is a probability. How about that?
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody has heard of this guy. His name is Baker Mayfield. Did you not see Baker Mayfield in that one game where he was resurrected and he flew in and in 36 hours dismantled what was it? Who did they play? I forgot who they played. Doesn't really matter. So you don't think Baker Mayfield is for real?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think the more time Baker Mayfield has to seriously, the more that Baker Mayfield has time to think about this, the worse it's going to get. Baker Mayfield was having the second worst season in the history of the NFL since total QBR became a stat back in 2006. Jimmy Clausen was the only guy to do it worse. I do like that Kyle said that he's going to be at the game with his dad, Ken Cable, and his brothers. 0% chance of loss. That is perfect. We need all the different kind of superstitious help that we can get for this Packers team. Stick around, guys and gals. We got a lot left to unpack. The Badgers, the Bucks last night. Woo, man. I'm not sure if there's a concern for Milwaukee right now, but did not look good. So stay tuned. Sports Carnival coming back in about a minute.
What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios, this is the Sports Carnival with this friendly reminder. Never do snow angels in a dog park. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Oh, Jesus, that's great. That Don Francisco spot, Chad, reminds me at the end when he's doing the push-ups of me and Jimmy Namath when we were actually at the Packers and the Bears game this September. We were drinking a lot of Don Franciscos. We were up all night, and Jim was probably at some point doing push-ups. It's hard to quite recall. Now, Jimmy checked in and said, I'll be at the game as well. We were talking about Kyle Cable, official real estate agent of the program, being in attendance on Monday night. Jim says, I'll be at the game as well. The Packers never lose when we show up. This is actually trending in the right direction for Green Bay based upon the quite anecdotal and superstitious evidence that we are acquiring. And Jim, you're right. When you go to a game, the Packers do not lose. They really do not lose. I thought this game for Green Bay with Baker Mayfield at quarterback I thought this game is a good spot. I really do. I think it's a good spot to bet. I think Green Bay covers the spread. I think the Packers eat some barbecue chicken, man. The more time Baker's got to think about it, the worse off he's going to be.
I agree with Rob Dog. I like the Lions. I think the Lions have a better shot. Honestly, I think that the way they're playing, Dan Campbell's got that team jacked up. These guys just have, I don't know, there's like this it thing going on right now, and it's kind of surrounding the team, and you can just kind of feel the momentum. Now, obviously, that can change. The other big factor this time of year, obviously, is who's the healthiest team. The healthiest team, generally, if you have a good, solid team and you're healthy, are going to go further than just about any other team. I know Green Bay's got a few injuries. I think, wasn't it Bakhtiari's? I think he's injured. I think he did not practice. There's a couple of different factors here. I agree with you. I think that I like the Rams in the points, but I do think that Green Bay wins this game.
Yeah, I think Green Bay wins it, and I really do think
I take 7.
I think Packers win it going away. The Rams have been so disjointed this year. I mean, Sean McVay looked so surprised when they won, and Baker Mayfield was able to pull that off. He just looked shocked. And listen, it's not to say that McVay can't coach and Baker can't play. I just don't like him in this spot. And I think that Green Bay at home in the cold, Chad, it hasn't stopped snowing here in 24 hours, maybe 36 hours. I shoveled the entire driveway yesterday, completely have to redo this whole thing today just so we can get back out on the road. So the weather's going to be really inclement, and I just don't know how good Baker is at this particular moment in time. Listen, he was a gamer for the Rams. He really was. He was a gamer. He went out there and he did something that not many of us thought that he would be able to do. But now he's on the road in Green Bay, big spot, national TV, isolated game. I just don't like it for Los Angeles. I really don't.
Morning Wood says that if Green Bay gets in the playoffs, our one and only Green and Gold insider Joe DeGuano needs to come to beautiful Stoddard to do a live show in person with Dave. What do you think of that, Dave?
Well, I don't think I'm going to be in Stoddard. So if Joe comes, that's going to be a pretty lonely welcome for him because I'm moving, right? Kyle Cable sold my house in 2 days, and I will be in La Crosse, Wisconsin by January the 20th. So I don't, and when do the playoffs start? I guess that's the other question, because maybe there is still some time.
January.
Yeah, I don't know if it's January. It might be earlier than January 20th.
No,
all right.
let's see.
Tell me when the playoffs start.
I don't know when the playoffs start necessarily, but the last game for the Packers is January 7th or 8th against the Detroit Lions. That's regular season.
Okay. So we'd be close. All right, Morning Wood. It's not a bad idea. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't want Joe to come to wherever I'm staying, right? I mean, if Joe wants to come out, do the show with me from the new Trauma Center studio, which Matt from the Recovery Room and I are going to make into something to behold. This is going to be like a TV production coming up real soon. Marengo Mike is not getting vetted. By the way, Marengo Mike's checking in from Huntley, Illinois, Marengo, Illinois, and says, I think some Packer fans are delusional. They're not making the playoffs. And then he followed this up with, I'm being vetted. No, you're totally not being vetted. Packer fans, listen, I've asked this question many times before. Do Packer fans really believe all of the things that they think about the team, or is that something that they say because it's what you say when you're a Packer fan? Like, we're going to make the playoffs, we're going to win 4 in a row, because you don't want to be a contrarian to the point where other people look at you cross-eyed, right?
Yeah.
This is the area of which in the country in which, and you've talked about this, people eat, sleep, breathe, drink green and gold. This is a Packer country. And when you start to take, broadsides at the Green Bay Packers, like, they might not win the Super Bowl this year. What? Now, don't forget that the Milwaukee Bucks and the Green Bay Packers both have the same number of championships in the last 50 years. In the last half century, those two teams have the same number of championships. But if you tell a Packer fan they're not making the Super Bowl and winning it most probably this season, no matter who's playing, they look at you like you're crazy.
All right, let's look at the schedule one more time. Okay, so they got the Rams on Monday night, as we mentioned. That's definitely a winnable game. More than likely will win.
Yes.
At Miami is a lot more winnable than I would have thought a couple of weeks ago. Miami's looking a little shaky.
Packers don't travel well down south, though.
Yeah, they're at home against Minnesota.
Yep.
On Sunday, January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Another game that I didn't think was winnable, now I do think is winnable, because the Vikings all of a sudden are looking shaky.
Okay.
And then they wrap up against the Lions, and I don't know why. It must be a flex, January 7th or 8th against the Lions. So that's to be determined, and doesn't necessarily say where it is either. I think it may be at home again. So that game I don't know about. I would lean towards the Lions on that. So I think they definitely could win 3 out of 4. I don't know if they could win all 4.
Well, even if the Packers, and this is what we have to remember as well, even if the Packers do win, they need to be aided by other teams losing. This has to be in combination with one thing, and then the other thing has to happen. So Minnesota's in the postseason. That's already a lock. So they're there. Miami's listen, they're a hedging team. I don't like Green Bay going down to Miami. I think they play better for where they're at in Green Bay. That's the advantage. I don't like them going down there, but that's a different story. They could win that game for sure. They do have, I guess, a better than a puncher's chance against Minnesota, even though I don't think Minnesota's fallen off quite as much. I just think that they got a little over their skis and possibly believed a little bit too much of their own press and their own hype. Yeah. Detroit's playing for something. And listen, here's something else that I was thinking about the other day, and I just want to circle back to it because I didn't bring it up with you. But I know that our audience members, especially Morning Wood, would be all over this. With Dan Campbell being the coach of the Lions, Robert Saleh now coach of the Jets, I want to start a WWE draft based upon NFL head coaches. Because I was thinking about Dan Campbell. He feels like the perfect WWE guy. We're coming out and biting kneecaps. We're going to get them all scrapped up. I mean, this guy is WWE. Robert Saleh, I mean, you put him in a one-a-tard or whatever it is they fucking wear, those costumes, those little get-ups, which, listen, we're not going to question their manhood. They're doing this thing. They're getting dressed up. They're wearing makeup. They're wearing these outfits. But he's going to look great in one of those outfits. Who else, though, would be a great WWE coach, like transference? So who could we draft into the WWE from the coaching ranks? I go Dan Campbell, Robert Saleh right off the top of the bat. I think Mike Tomlin could be a really good like character addition, like a villain. He could come in and play some things. He'd be a great like Vince McMahon to sort of give the speech, give the press conference. You could have like Matt LaFleur and a couple of the guys like dress up in gimp outfits, have them like walked around in a cage by somebody else more manly like Ronda Rousey. You could have something like that.
I forgot about Ronda Rousey. Not a big fan of hers. Is she in the WWE now?
You betcha. Oh, yeah. You betcha.
I don't watch that anymore. I would say Andy Reid is your Captain Lou Albano. It would be a good manager with his mustache. You throw a couple rubber bands in there, and you got something right there, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, that's not bad. I like where you're going with that whole train of thought, if you will. I think I saw, and I may be wrong on this, but I did see someone say that going back to the Packers, if the Packers win out, everybody thinks they can win out, they still only have a 33% chance of getting into the playoffs because, as aforementioned, a lot of other things have to happen. So I think the best thing you could hope for if you're a Packer fan is that they win out, control their own destiny, right? Or they don't control their own destiny, but at least win out, end on wins, end on a positive note, and then hopefully some magic happens where enough teams lose that they get in. But I just don't see that happening because I don't think they're going to win all four. I think they're going to lose to at least Detroit and possibly Minnesota.
I do too. I don't think they win all four. I think Miami is another really, really tough game for them. And Miami, because of their recent struggles, they're going to be looking for, again, a prime opportunity to get right. There's going to be a right to ship type game. And playing in Florida for the Packers, at least from what I have seen in my tenure and career here in Wisconsin, has not worked out great for them. Let me go to our poll question real quick, guys and gals. It's on Twitter at the Sports Carney. If you're not yet following me on Twitter, get up there and start doing it now at the Sports Carney. And we're at the Sports Carney across all the social media platforms. So wherever you get your social from, follow us at the Sports Carney. The question, which of the four teams best record-wise in the NFC, Niners, Vikings, Cowboys, or Eagles, Chad, has the best shot to win the Super Bowl? This is really a two-team race on Twitter. 50% say the Eagles, 44.5% are in for the 49ers. On our Facebook group page, again, 53% Eagles, 39% 49ers. Vikings getting 7%, Cowboys just 1% of the vote so far. I think that's fair. It's the 49ers and the Eagles. And listen, the Eagles, for a number of reasons, offensive line, defensive front, special teams, the fact that Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback playing the way that he is, it makes it extremely difficult for the defenses to be able to account for that. Like Brock Purdy, he can move and he can escape. He's got some more escapability than Jimmy G, but he is not going to be confused with Jalen Hurts, who is ostensibly their team's best running back. Right? Like Jalen Hurts is their team's best running back. And he also throws a really accurate deep ball. Jalen Hurts has been good on those deep balls. He's got weapons. He's got Smith, who he played with at Alabama. And well, at least I should say they're alumni together at Alabama. And then you've got AJ Brown, who comes over in the trade that gets the fucking GM, John Robinson, fired from Tennessee, essentially. Yeah. So Philly's a good team and they're set up well. There's just something about this 49ers team that after watching last night's game, I was really taken with. Let's pull up that slide because, while we're not going to sit here and beat the 49ers drum and tell you how great of a team they are, it does bear examination because Brock Purdy now started 2 games and filled in for Jimmy G on another, and they've won all 3 of those games that he's come in and played. I don't know that they definitely go away from Trey Lance, but the fact that both Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, Chad, are so young, and Brock Purdy's a rookie now on like the lowest of rookie contracts. Trey Lance doesn't cost you anything. I don't think it really hurts the 49ers to make a move away from Trey Lance. I mean, look at what the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen after just a year. Got rid of him, drafted Kyler Murray #1. If you know that the guy that you've got playing is better than the other one, or there's somebody coming up that you could get that's better than the guy you drafted, even if he was a top pick, I think you go with it. And Brock Purdy last night, again, efficient. His numbers aren't going to wow you. 217 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, no picks, was just consistent. I thought he was really just consistent.
He's in a Frank Reich situation, right? Jim Kelly goes down, Frank Reich steps in and takes him to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win. They lost 4 in a row. Man, that's rough. Just thinking about that.
Yes,
that's so rough. But or as I mentioned before, a Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer situation. You've got an awesome defense. You've got great weapons around you. All you have to do is manage the game and not make mistakes, and you're going to win most of those games and set up perfectly for the playoffs with that defense and how ferocious that defense is. And having Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy, I think right now the 49ers are in a really good spot. I lean towards the Eagles at this moment in time, but I can definitely see the 49ers creeping into their space, and I can see why our poll is neck and neck, much like why I think the Cowboys and what was the other team?
Vikings.
The Vikings are neck and neck, because I think both of those teams are good and questionable in a similar way. You're like, yeah, they're good, but yeah, there's something about them that just kind of makes me a little apprehensive about picking them. So
Sure.
I think that right now where Brock Purdy's at, not only for his career, but for the 49ers, is absolutely perfect if he can continue to stay healthy and play the way he's playing. Last night, not a lot of mistakes. He was 11 for 11 to start the game, throwing a lot of Joe Montana easy dump passes, not going deep a lot. Again, you've got all these weapons. The defense played great. I mean, they are my team, so sometimes when you get emotional about these things, you don't make good judgments. But yeah, they look good, man. They really do.
Well, here was the other thing that I thought that Brock Purdy did well last night. Yes, they are very hot, winners of 7 in a row. What I thought that Brock Purdy did that was important actually came in the latter stages of the game, the fourth quarter, as a matter of fact. And it wasn't that Seattle was necessarily threatening, but they had the 49ers backed up into their own end zone. Brock Purdy was making throws from his own end zone and doing so with a lot of confidence. Now, the 49ers end up stalling out. They didn't end up getting anything really from that drive, but what he did was get them out of the end zone and made crucial throws on third down and tight window throws.
Yeah.
There were some of the throws that I thought that Brock Purdy made that only an experienced NFL quarterback would make. And that's why I think that it's easy to see right now that the 49ers, while they might not be Super Bowl favorites and perhaps Brock Purdy's party comes crashing to an end in the postseason, they're good enough with this guy to be able to make it into the postseason. Obviously, they clinched the NFC West last night and be a danger in at least a couple of games. Morning Wood, real quick, Chad, ask me this question. I want to throw this to you as well. Who's got the better upside, Jordan Love or Trey Lance right now? I would actually say Jordan Love, because we've seen him more in NFL competition, and he's actually looked okay in the one time that we have seen him this year.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love, that, as Joe DeGuano told us or said, that little small window might have been enough to get enough teams interested, because I think that he probably will be shipped in the offseason. At least that's the way it's looking. Back to Brock Purdy, I just wanted to make this one point, that double pump fake that he made. I don't know if that was a design or if that was impromptu, kind of situation where he just, was out there, just making it up as he went, and then went to Kittle. That was pretty impressive. That was a nice little move.
I've seen him
drew the linebackers in and opened that window up. And that was, I think, last night, other than the fact of starting off 11-11, that move right there kind of made you go, whoa, I didn't know that guy had this kind of chutzpah. That was impressive.
I saw him make one of those similar type moves. It wasn't a double pump, but I saw him make a pump throw in the 49ers last game. And I thought, wow, that was just like you've mentioned. That was one of those things that stands out, that pops at you a little bit, right? When you got a quarterback making a pump fake, because it shows that they're not too nervous back there. And this is really where it goes, I think, to the benefit of a Brock Purdy and to the detriment of guys like Jordan Love and Trey Lance. Brock Purdy started like 30 games in college, was getting first team reps for 3+ years in a Big 12 school, had to play against Oklahoma, had to play against Texas. You have to play against big-time programs in big-time games in front of more people than there'll ever be at an NFL game. Let's be fair about that. These college stadiums, they get 115, 20,000 people like it's going away party time. In the NFL, you're getting 60, 70 at most. So Brock Purdy's played in big games, and I think that's definitely helped him out. We'll see what the 49ers can do for the rest of the season, but right now they're looking really good. Chad, changing gears over to basketball last night, we had both the Badgers and the Bucks in action. I was previewing these games yesterday afternoon on ESPN 105.5 with John Papadopoulos, and John was asking me if it was completely crazy to take the Wisconsin Badgers minus the 22.5 points. And I told him it wasn't crazy because Wisconsin has been a cover machine this year. Well, last night, the Wisconsin Badgers were down 32-31 at the half to Lehigh. They come out in the second half and absolutely steamroll these guys. Jordan Davis, lacrosse Central grad and star, had 14 points, 5 boards. Stephen Crowell, 15 points and 5 rebounds. And off the bench, Connor Eastigan had 13. Tyler Wall was in the starting lineup at 13 and 7. But again, Lehigh was winning at the half 32-31. Wisconsin used a huge second half and nearly covered the 22.5 point spread. However, they did come that 1 point shy of actually being able to get a victory. But it was an awesome game for Wisconsin in the second half. First half, though, it looked like it was going to be an upset. Lehigh was hanging with them. The game was as low scoring as you would have thought, 32-31. But then in the second half, we saw a near offensive explosion from Wisconsin, scoring 47 en route to that victory. Chad, it was a good game for the Badgers, and it was a really good game for Jordan Davis, who has had some offensive struggles this year. He shot the ball with confidence last night. He was efficient, 5 for 11, and like I've mentioned, picked up those 5 rebounds. So he was impactful on the defensive end of the ball. It was a good win for the Badgers, which I think that we needed in the state of Wisconsin, because if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan last night and you treated yourself to that Bucks and that Grizzlies game, boy, you were probably feeling by the end of that like ill, because Chad, this thing was so bad from the beginning. The Grizzlies were up at one point by 50 in this game. They end up winning by 41 points. This is the second largest win. I caught this weird stat. The second largest win in the history of the NBA from one team over another that had a winning percentage of greater than 700, which the Bucks had the second best record and do have the second best record in the NBA as they entered last night's game. Memphis absolutely put it on, and Ja Morant had a triple-double. This kid is electric. I know we talked about that matchup. It was not a matchup. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies were, from the beginning of the game, just lighting it up. And yes, Middleton, just dog shit. 1 for 12 last night. Not good.
Yeah, and it looked like it was pretty well distributed across the Grizzlies, box scores. Everybody seemed to chip in this game. It wasn't just Ja Morant. It wasn't like Ja dropped 50. I mean, he had a triple-double. But when you look at that score, 142-101, I was thinking, because I caught a little bit of the game, and then I went back to the Monday Night Football game, and then I fell asleep, so I didn't see the end of it. But when I saw the result, I was like, oh, God, I bet Ja dropped 50. And he didn't. But when you look across the box scores, a lot of guys on the bench were in double digits and, had a lot of contributions.
5 guys off the bench in double figures. 5.
Yeah. Bobby Portis, from Milwaukee, looked decent. He had 19 points, and he did his thing. But obviously, Giannis was not quite Giannis. And when Middleton goes 1 for 12, that doesn't help either. But, it's a long season. It's one game. It's not like you got to throw in the towel here or you start going, oh, no, oh, God, are the Bucks in trouble? No, it's one game. We've got, there's 82 games in a season. So, the
for
Celtics
sure. And listen, I don't,
against teams they shouldn't have too, and then they bounce back. And I think Milwaukee will do the same thing.
Milwaukee will do the same thing. I'm not concerned about the Bucks in a holistic way, but what I am looking at here is this Memphis Grizzlies team, who we were talking about yesterday as one of these teams in the Western Conference, and you've got to put the Pelicans, who played an overtime game last night with the Jazz. Jazz have beaten the Pels twice in a row now, but you got to look at teams like Memphis and New Orleans and say,
sure,
wow, with Steph Curry's injury now, and he's going to be out for several weeks at least with a strained shoulder. That was confirmed on the MRI. I look at this Memphis team and I'm thinking, whoa, I don't want to play them. They're 13-2 at home now. And you talk about Ja Morant not scoring 50, had that 25-point game. This was the more impressive thing to me. The dude had 10 assists and 1 turnover. The plus-minus rating, he was plus 30 in the game, plus 30. And then off the bench, we already talked about this, 5 guys in double figures, including Not Steven Adams. Adams actually did start. But Brandon Clark, this kid who I believe played at Gonzaga, right? Brandon Clark played at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
He had 12 points and 6 rebounds for Memphis. It's a good team. I mean, they really are a good team. Steven Adams, he was a starter, 10 points and 6 boards. They're just one of those kinds of teams. They're not the grit and grind Grizzlies that they were back with Zach Randolph and Pau Gasol or even Marc Gasol, but they're an exciting up and coming, up and down basketball team. And Ja is just a terrific watch. The highlight plays that he delivers on a nightly basis are just they're scintillating.
They're definitely for real. I'll tell you what, Steven Adams is a guy I would love to have on the Celtics or see on the Bucks. That's a guy you just want because he does all the dirty work and he's a big body. You don't want to have to face that guy in the middle. And I think part of the problem or part of the reason why Giannis didn't have as good a night is because of Steven Adams. He's very disruptive.
Well, he's Australian. He doesn't give a fuck about hitting you in the head.
No,
Like, that's the thing. I don't give a fuck about this.
He would have done well in the 80s. He would have done really well in the 80s.
Any era. And actually, he's so skilled, man. He would have seemed like one of the best damn centers in the NBA.
Yeah.
If he would have been playing in the 80s. All right, stay tuned. Sports Carnival coming back after we say hi to some friends. Remember to take this morning's poll question at the Sports Carney on Twitter, our Facebook group page. Stay tuned.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. You know, I'm not passive aggressive, unlike some people. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Whatever. Passive aggressive, huh? I think you're more you're just hibernationally aggressive. You just want to hibernate all the time. You don't want to be passive or active. You just want hibernation.
Yes.
Nation aggressive. Like right now.
I could take a nap.
Well, who couldn't take a nap or go back to sleep? Oh, wait, us, because we've still got a half an hour left of the program. It's going to be a really fun weekend of sports. We've got a lot of great college football, Chad. The bowl games are beginning to kick off. The NFL started last night, week 15, with the Niners getting a victory over the Seahawks 21-13 and clinching the NFC West. We've got Green Bay Packer football on Monday. We are just chock full of fun. The Milwaukee Bucks, I know we were just talking about the Grizzlies laying one on the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks have another tough test Saturday night at home. They're going to be hosting the Jazz. The Jazz are now 17-14 after beating the Pelicans in overtime last night. Jordan Clarkson is just playing so good right now for the Jazz. Lauren Markkanen is also playing really good. If you've got tickets for the game at the Fiserv Forum, you're in for a treat because Utah is not the team, Chad, that we thought they were going to be before the season started. They are a competitive ball club. And if Milwaukee's not ready, they're going to get it. They're going to get it handed to them. I'm telling you what, we talked about this yesterday as well on John Papadopoulos' show on ESPN 105.5. Without Drew Holiday, the Bucks are vulnerable. I think that outside of Giannis, he is the most important part of this team. I know that Chris Middleton gets more press, right, because he's kind of been considered the the Robin to Giannis's Batman. But Drew Holiday's defensive prowess, he's an all NBA defensive player. His offensive acumen, the way that he's able to pace and control the game is so vitally important. And you see what you see last night versus a team like Memphis, and that is a guard like Ja Morant or really any of the top guards in the league are going to just cruise past Milwaukee's frontline defense if, in fact, they don't have Drew Holiday, which I just think Drew Holiday makes everybody so much better. He makes Brook Lopez better. The better that your defense is up front, the better it's going to be down low. He makes Giannis better, and let's hope that Drew Holiday gets back on the court soon.
Well, he will be. I think that if we were having this conversation in February, I think it'd be different than in December. Again, long season. Plenty of time. Be healthy at the end of the season. Don't really worry about too much at the beginning of the season. And if this team stays healthy, they're on a collision course to play the Celtics if the Celtics stay healthy. And whoever wins between the Celtics and the Bucks, in my opinion, my humble opinion, will win the NBA championship. I don't think it's coming out of the West. I think it's coming out of the East. And again, all dependent on health. Health is a huge thing, obviously, in sports. And I do think that the Milwaukee Bucks can weather better than just about anybody because of how deep they are. Outside of maybe Giannis going down, they're going to pretty much be able to weather just about any injury as long as it's not too significant. The Celtics, I think, can weather to a degree, but not quite as deep. But when it comes to that matchup, to me, that's what I'm looking forward to. I think that's what the NBA is looking forward to. And as we know, narrative construction goes, that's probably what it's going to end up being.
Well, I think the NBA would always love it when you have historical rivals. The Bucks and the Celtics are historical rivals. These two teams have played each other really tough and have both been really, really good over the last 50, 55 years in long stretches. Not good in other stretches as well. But I think that you're right. That looks to me like the way this will shake out in the NBA if the Bucks and Celtics stay healthy. They meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, knock on wood. The Bucks win. For us, for you, it's the Celtics. I do think that team, whoever comes out of the East, is probably the most well-poised. And then you still have to look at teams. I know that Rob Dog was bringing this up earlier, like the Knicks. Not that they're going to be in a position to, bump one of those teams out, I don't think. But they're definitely playing with a renewed sense of vigor. Jalen Brunson is exactly what we thought he was going to be for that team.
Julius Randle's playing great. Yep.
Julius Randle's having his best season. And look at how the loss of Jalen Brunson has affected or disrupted the Dallas Mavericks and their ability to win these close games. So there's still a lot left. Of course, I think the Bucks and the Celtics, at least from the way that it looks right now, nobody gets hurt big time. They're going to be there at the end. I want to go back to Rob Dog's next point here because we've got a poll question that's up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as the Facebook group page. It's about the four teams best record-wise in the NFC, which has the best shot to win the Super Bowl. Packers not there, nor are the Bears. But Rob Dog says, I can see the Packers going 1-3 the rest of the season and finishing 6-11 or 2-2, be 7-10. I can also see the Bears finishing 3-14 or 4-13. That both of those things are likely, if not outright just locks. Those things are mostly likely. The Packers going 1-3 or 2-2 seems about right. I can see them definitely winning the Rams, but
2-2. I say 2-2. And yeah, as hot as the 49ers are, is how cold the Bears have been. Because I think they've lost 6 in a row.
Yes.
And it's sad. The Bears, that's another one of those teams that, one of the original 8 that when the Bears do well, the league does well. And it would be nice to see them back in that kind of position where they at least have a shot of representing themselves in the playoffs. And
they were just there a couple of years ago, though.
I know, but it's
with Mitch
on a
Trubisky,
consistent. I'm talking about on a consistent basis. It'd be nice to see that happen again. The 85 Bears is one of my favorite all-time teams. 85, 86 Bears. I think they are probably the best defense or one of the best defenses to ever play in the NFL. Offensively, obviously, they had Walter Payton, so that helped. Wasn't a high-flying, pass it down the field, Jim McMahon necessarily offense, but I wish they could kind of get back to that. I pull for the Bears. I do, and I feel bad for Bears fans right now because it sucks to see your team, lose that many and not really have a shot of doing anything.
Yeah, Bears still suck. And that's a mantra that we just keep getting repeated over and over out here. Bears still suck. Here's something for Packer fans that I would imagine, probably feels a little awkward when you think about it. The Bears made the Super Bowl in 2008, right? The Packers made the Super Bowl and won in 2010. The Bears and the Packers are just 2 years apart from being at the Super Bowl at the same time. And that's the last time, 2010, that either of these teams sniffed one. Well, I guess the Packers have sniffed one, but they've gotten beaten like redheaded stepchildren in every NFC championship game or real consequential playoff game since. So, yeah, it sucks, but this is where I think we go as Packer fans back to the Bears still suck adage because it's starting to get long for Green Bay Packer fans too, right? Which is why we're talking about, like Kyle Cable brought up this morning, the odd ability for the Green Bay Packers to maybe make the postseason if this and then that happens, if Mount Vesuvius re-erupts and, the world is disrupted, global trade stops, the Packers could still get into the playoffs. Sure, I get it. It's got to feel long for Packer fans too, because at least Bear fans have been told they suck for so long. Packer fans live in expectationville, dude. I mean, the Packer fans live in expectationville, which the expectation, rightly or wrongly, Don Majkowski's your quarterback, you're like, well, this is a Super Bowl team, right? No. Jordan Love's your quarterback. Well, it's a Super Bowl team, right? No. But I think that that's even harder for Packer fans to swallow. I really do.
Yeah, you're right. I was just looking at it from my own point of view and just the feeling, because the Packers have been in it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but to me, the stretch for the Bears seems longer. I mean, I know we can actually measure things and do all kinds of stats, and I know everybody jerks off on stats now. I'm just talking about the way that it feels. See, I'm going back to old school when you had a newspaper and you had to wait for the newspaper and you had to look at box scores and it was more of a feeling, right? You actually had to watch the games or listen to the games. It wasn't all of this nerd spreadsheet thing that everybody does and QBRs and all that horseshit, which mostly is horseshit in my opinion.
Sure. It's like
I'm going to a feeling situation. And to me, it feels like it's been longer for the Bears, which I think it has technically as well. And again, I'm not necessarily, this isn't a Bears versus Packers deal. It's kind of like in the NBA. It's sad to see the Knicks struggle as long as they have.
Yeah.
The league is better when the Knicks do well. It's not worse. It's better. I think that the league is better when the Bears and the Packers and in some of these major teams, the Giants, do well. It's just a fact.
Agreed. And I don't think that there's any arguing that. And I hear you because, again, as a Packer fan now, I'm with Jason Breacher rejoicing in the Bears' trials and tribulations because, look, the Bears and the Packers have had such an interestingly rich history, and the Bears beating up on the Packers for so many years, right? Like that was what was happening. The Bears were beating up on the Packers for so many years, especially during the 1980s. That was a bloodbath. And I think that the Bears I think they actually canned themselves extra bear meat just to save for the wintertime because they're like, we might as well. We've got Acme Packing Company just around our fucking little finger. So in that respect, as a Packer fan, I'm with you, Breach, and we rejoice in the Bears' trials and tribulations. But yes, anytime that the major market teams in any of the sports are doing better, it's going to make for a better product because it's more polarizing. Because when you have the big markets, Chicago, you mentioned that, right? And Green Bay acts as a big market in the national NFL spectrum because of its history and
impact,
its place. Right. And so when you look at these teams, it creates the kind of acrimony between other non-major market teams and you, which is what you want. That's what every good story is set up with. And I don't mean just sports stories, but every good novel is set up with your protagonist and your antagonist. And the better your antagonist is, the better the protagonist is.
Yeah. Speaking of antagonists, the league is better when Minnesota sucks.
That's fun.
That's
fun.
Another team that again, I kind of have a soft spot for as Morningwood has a hard spot, if you will, because of my dad's, affinity for that team. Again, I mentioned before, he's from North Dakota and he pulled for Joe Kapp and like Fran Tarkington and, the Purple People Eaters and the whole 9 yards. And that was a great team too. I would say that, I hate to say this, but like if the Jaguars and the Titans do well, is it really good for the league?
No, not really. No,
thank you. No one cares.
Well, and you want to think about another outlier team that nobody cares about when they do well. It's like you got the Jaguars, you've got the Titans, you've got teams like who else? The Panthers. Nobody cares if they do well. They went to the Super Bowl and it was like, really? Like
it's like when the Florida Marlins won the World Series. No one gave a shit,
dude. And they've won a couple of them.
I know, but no one was there. No one cared.
Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. All right, listen, take the poll question. Go to the Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. Go to our Facebook group page if you're also a member there, which we've got over 250 members now, and we keep growing. Thank you very much. And let us know the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Vikings, which the Viking fans should start to get in for some votes. Let us know which of these NFC teams you think actually has the best shot of winning the Super Bowl this year. I think Chad and I were right. It's a 2-team race. It's Philly and it's San Francisco, at least right now.
Let's flip it. I'll ask you this. Who's the first out in the playoffs of those 4 teams? Who's the first team to lose and get out?
Dallas.
You think it's Dallas? See, I hate to say this, but I think it's Minnesota.
That would be my second choice.
It's a coin flip, but that is a coin flip, right?
I just think
Are you just dogging Dallas because you don't like Dak, or what is your beef with Dallas?
My thing with Dallas is if they can lose to the Packers, they can lose to absolutely anybody.
It's Mike McCarthy. I forgot. You don't like Mike McCarthy.
I don't. I think that he's going to get himself in a situation where he's asked to make a big decision that doesn't have the word cheeseburger involved, and he's just going to fucking blow it. That's it. He's just going to fucking blow it.
It's based on Mike McCarthy and the fact that they lost to the Packers. Got it.
Yeah,
That makes sense now.
If you can lose to Green Bay, you can lose to anybody, damn it. So the Cowboys first team out. All right, stay tuned. We're going to be out of here in about 15 minutes, but we still got some betting action to talk about when we come back here on the Sports Carnival. Stay tuned.
The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest Mortgage Team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Hey, it's Todd Vercruzzi's Hot Tubs and Jacuzzis with a big announcement for the next 2 months. When you buy a hot tub or jacuzzi, you get a pair of tickets for the Big Couz's Booze Cruise. Headed to Cabo. So sop that mop and then come pop a top with me, the Couz. Sop that mop is slang term for wet bush.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. You know, Charles Schultz of Peanut fame once said, "Don't worry about the world coming to an end today. It's already tomorrow in Australia." Here's your host, Dave Carney. Quite wise, Charles Schultz.
Oh, maybe that's why Steven Adams beat the Bucks up so much last night, because he saw the future and he knew exactly what to do to beat Giannis. The Grizzlies last night, guys and gals, if you didn't see that, you did yourself a favor. Hung 142 points on the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks scored 101. Milwaukee got beat like a drum. I see Neil Duda checking in this morning. I want to hit this one real quick. He's like, "Hey, the Minnesota Brett Favre years, Randy Moss years in Minneapolis, plus the Minneapolis Miracle weren't bad for the league, but I see where you're coming from. Neither were the Anderson, Walsh, or Carlson missed field goals." Look, Minnesota is a great city. Minneapolis, I should say, is a great city. I love Minneapolis. Minneapolis, St. Paul is one of my favorite American cities. When it's not the wintertime, it just doesn't, for most people outside of the region, it doesn't have any real draw or pull. There's something about Chicago being the second city, the windy city, right? Chicago is one of the largest markets in the country. So it's got that. But yeah, the Minnesota win, it doesn't get everybody's hearts a-fluttering. It really doesn't. Even though Mike Zimmer, for what it's worth, did get to date an Instagram model. So there is that. That did carry.
And they do have Mall of America. Could you imagine Hey Duda DJ services in Mall of America? Could you imagine him is spinning right outside a Foot Locker? Can we make this happen? Neil Duda inside the Mall of America?
Like this.
We were listening. You know what? We have to give props to Neil. Not that we've already given him enough props because we made his own commercial and all that. You commented after the show, and this is kind of one of those backhanded compliments. You're like, you know what? At first, I didn't really care for it, but it does grow on you. And I'm like, it does grow on you a little bit. You got to listen to the lyrics, though.
Yeah, at first, I'm kind of like everybody probably was when they first heard it. Like, okay, this is kind of funny, right? This is funny. You sang karaoke, you recorded it one night, you decided to fuck around, have at it, and it was cool. But actually, the more that we have peeled into this, because it was a video game reference that he was making. It was like Call of Duty, headshots in Call of Duty. And I was like, that's actually pretty clever. I like that. Yeah. That's a good one. Neil, I'd love to see at the Mall of America, Chad. Let me tell you what, that place is that's like its own world. That's its own world in there. There's an amusement park. There's huge there's movie theaters, all sorts of restaurants, shops. I mean, it is wild. It is really a wild place to go.
Pete Rose is signing autographs inside. That's all. Yeah, if $5 picture, what is it? Exactly. $5 a picture.
$5. $5 for Pete Rose. Actually, now he's starting to give you $5 if you come and take a picture with him. Pete Rose started offering people $5 in the middle of the casino. Hey, do you know who I am? I'm Pete Rose, and I'm like, yes, goddammit, I know who you are, and stay away from me, you pedophile.
He hangs out at Sports Clips, and he's one of the models for one of the. You want the Pete Rose? Put this bowl on your head.
Listen, Pete Rose, and this guy has drawn the ire of me on my programs for years. Pete Rose is one of the biggest piece of shits in sports. I know everybody loves to talk about him as Charlie Hustle and all this. He was fucking a child when he was a full-grown man playing for Cincinnati. He was fucking a child. This man is admitted to this. He's a pedophile. He also, Chad, and this isn't something that is 100% verified, but one of his equipment managers in Toronto, his final year in Toronto, that apparently had seen a guy come with him through all his career, has suggested, and this is an article that I brought up 2-3 years ago, and I can't remember where it is now, NewJersey.com or something. He suggested in this article that Pete Rose, for his career, corked his bat, had used altered equipment. So what would you say if not only this fucking guy was betting on his own games, but also used modified equipment? Could we then start to say, all right, maybe he isn't the greatest hitter of all time because, he might not have used steroids, but I'll tell you what, using a corked bat is probably a bigger performance enhancer than using steroids, in my estimation.
You had me at pedophilia. I didn't know that about him. Yeah, if he's a pedophile, then he's a useless piece of shit. Unfortunately,
he's fucking a child. He had a relationship with a 16-year-old girl when he was a 32-year-old married guy. It was weird. All right, so let's get off of that. Let's go to Pete Rose's favorite thing, and that's betting. Betting on games.
Betting on things he controls, though, illegally.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
he loves to bet.
I'm only the manager and the player of the team. What is the problem here? I'm betting on the outcomes of my specific games in which I'm managing and playing in. What a big deal.
I don't remember the exact quote, but there was a quote that he said at one time. I'll bet you I never gambled on baseball or something like that.
That's great. All right. Well, when you go to make your legal wagers now, you do it at betus.com.pa. You sign up using the promo code Carnival. We're going to beat this drum because when you sign up and you use the promo code Carnival and you make your initial deposit, you'll be prompted, guys and gals, with a promo code right there as you're going to make your initial deposit. You put in the word Carnival, you get a 125% deposit match in the sports book up to $2,500. So essentially, you put in $2,500. They're going to match that $3,000+ You'll have over $5,600 in which to play with. And use some of your free money, Chad, to make plays this weekend. I broke down the Week 15 slate into Saturday and Sunday games. We'll talk a lot more about the Packers and the Rams from a betting perspective on Monday when we have Green and Gold insider Joe DeGuano on. But this is the full slate of action for this upcoming weekend. We start off tomorrow, Minnesota versus Indy. Minnesota, 4-point favorite. The Browns are 3-point favorites versus Baltimore. Tyler Huntley is going to play, it seems. He's cleared concussion protocol, backup quarterback for the Ravens. The Buffalo Bills -7 versus Miami. Let's start with Saturday. We know that my play, and I've talked about this a lot this week, we know that my play is Buffalo-Miami under 44 for all sorts of great reasons. Tua's struggling. The snow is going to be 2 to 4 to 6 inches. We don't know exactly. It's going to be cold. The Bills are going to shut it down from an air raid attack. They're going to go on the ground quite a bit. This game's going to be low scoring. I like that, but I could see Buffalo covering the spread. I think Baltimore is a live dog versus the Browns. I don't like Deshaun Watson at all. 2 years away from football, and he has looked exactly like you would expect somebody that's away from football for 2 years. And then Minnesota -4 versus the Colts. I sneakily think the Colts lose this game by 3 points. I feel like Minnesota wins by a field goal in this one, but let's talk about these games. Anything jump off the board to you as like a really good, solid play?
I'm kind of liking this right here, 30 under on Cleveland and Baltimore because of the situation, what you just mentioned about Deshaun Watson. We're not positive if the backup quarterback's going to play. We know Lamar Jackson is out, so I kind of like the under on that. I agree with you. I don't necessarily like this total, but I do agree that Indy may cover here. I think it's going to be a 3-point game. Minnesota wins or possibly outright loses, and I like that. And I agree on your under as well in Buffalo, especially with, like you said, Tua is not – I don't know what happened. He was playing so well, and then all of a sudden, he just has kind of started to shit the bed. And with the weather situation, I do like the under there.
Well, Pete, I was thinking of Pete Rose. I'm seeing a Pete Rose quote come up here. The thing with Tua, I've never really thought that he was all that good. I've never believed in him, and I know that sounds bad because he's a good kid and everybody really likes him. Yeah. I just never thought he was going to be a very good NFL quarterback. I think what we saw early this season from the Dolphins and their new offensive scheme, the teams that they were playing and how they were able to play in the early season weather was perfect for Tua. It just, when you're a small guy that's already got injury issues and you're going now into December, January football, traveling out to places where you're not overly familiar, I just don't think that he is able to overcome that. He's just not that kind of quarterback in my estimation. So he looks like he's regressing to the mean. And with that weather, oh God, I can see this being a 21-7 game. That this just screams under right here.
He would be a great guy to play Wheel of Fortune with, because if you need to buy a vowel, he's got plenty. So that's
yes,
the upside of Tua.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
All right. I like Buffalo -7 versus Miami. I like the under on this one as well. I think that Baltimore is a live dog. In Minnesota, I don't think they cover. I like the Colts plus the points. And I also feel like this game, 47.5, might be a little rich there, too. I think that you could go under.
You like the under?
A little bit. I just don't know that Minnesota in this game, they're going to play not to lose as opposed to win, I feel.
Right.
And
Good
that
point.
could keep it on the ground. Dalvin Cook's going to get a lot of fucking eating on the ground. He really is. Now, I hope for my own personal sake that Justin Jefferson goes off for 227,000 yards because I need everything that I can get from Justin Jefferson. I can't let Mike Petrell beat me
Don't
again.
be greedy. He had 223 yards last week.
No, this guy's awesome.
What
He's
he needs
great.
this week is he needs, let's say, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Two touchdowns. I'm great with
You
that
need
too.
some touchdowns is what you need.
Sweet. And let me get a couple of chunk yard plays. Okay. So if Kirk Cousins can go downfield a couple of 20, 30-yard bombs, I'll be really happy.
I'll tell you what.
I think the guy covers this.
The guy that unfortunately is going to suffer from Jalen Hurts playing as well as he is Justin Jefferson, because I think Justin Jefferson is deserved so far of the MVP, but I think it's going to Jalen Hurts this year.
Yeah, it looks increasingly like, especially if the Eagles keep playing the way they're playing right now and winning, it looks increasingly like that. But don't discount Joe Burrow. I'm going to tell you that they've got a game I want to talk about here with Tampa Bay. And then there's also Patrick Mahomes, who, if the Chiefs continue to play and show out and his numbers look gaudy enough, then that could really be something. Philly versus Chicago, Chad. This game's not really much of one to talk about, except for Philly will keep rolling. Chicago's not going to be able to cover the spread. The number here looks very high. I would take the under 48.5 in this one. I just don't think that Chicago's going to keep pace enough. They've been scoring. That hasn't really been their problem. This game against Philadelphia doesn't feel like that. The Saints versus the Falcons. The Saints are at home -4 versus Atlanta. Marcus Mariota has been benched. They're now going to that rookie quarterback that they drafted, Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. So I think that New Orleans picks up a win here. I think they can cover that. The Jets and the Lions, this is a real interesting game because New York's at home. They haven't been winning with Mike White, but he's been throwing the ball a lot of yards. So people are loving him a lot more than Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson has been elevated back to the second quarterback on this team. That said, Detroit's playing for something, and not to say that New York isn't, but I think Detroit right now, they're a hot football team. After starting off, what did they start off? 2-6, was it? It was, they're now, no, they start off 1-6. And they have won 5 of their last 6 games.
They're hot.
They're hot. And
I see a bounce back game here with the Jets. I'd stay away from that. My gut's going Detroit, so go the opposite. So whatever I say, go the opposite.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, I think
I'll
take Detroit for the Jets win. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take the Jags to cover the 4-point spread here against the Cowboys. I actually like the Jags to win this game straight up. I think I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on Jacksonville on the money line. I think Dallas is spending way too much time right now thinking about the Philadelphia Eagles, who they play on Christmas Eve. And Micah Parsons went on Von Miller's podcast and started talking about Jalen Hurts not being a very good quarterback and it being a system play in the team.
Right.
And now that's become the focus as opposed to Jacksonville. And Jacksonville looks to me like a live home dog here. I've got a home team getting 4 points. I think I'm going to take that. The Chiefs versus the Texans. I don't know if I go anywhere with this game. The number 14, it was 21 or 16. It was 16 last week against the Cowboys. They nearly beat the Cowboys. I don't know if Kansas City will stay fully interested in this game. I think they win, of course, but I could see that being a 7 to 10 point game. That doesn't really interest me. A surprise note here is Denver giving up, 3 points to Arizona. It will be Brett Rippon, it feels like, quarterbacking the Broncos.
Why. No Russell Wilson. They have a shot of winning this game.
Maybe. Okay, maybe that's fair. By the way, Russell Wilson, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That is it this year. The Vegas Raiders versus the Patriots, very interesting game. Josh McDaniels now going up against Bill Belichick. The Raiders are a point favorite here at home versus the Patriots. I think that's fair. I think the Raiders' offense is much better than the Patriots, but the Patriots' defense could give them problems, and I don't know if McDaniels gets nervous. The Chargers versus the Titans. This spot for LA, -3 feels about right. Herbert's really picking it up. Tennessee feels like they're struggling a bit here now. They should have won last week, and they just didn't. Cincinnati versus Tampa Bay. I know we're running up against it, but I love Cincinnati in this spot. Tampa Bay is bad. They are a bad football team. And I think Cincinnati, Joe Burrow is going to show Tom Brady who the new Tom Brady is. And then finally, Washington versus the Giants.
Their last matchup was a tie, I believe.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And there has been an instance. I don't think it happened it was 1920 something, but there has been an instance in which 2 teams have tied twice in the same year. If there were ever a time in which that could happen again, it would be this year's Washington Commanders versus the New York Giants. That could actually
1920. Wow.
something. Yeah, something. Yeah. All right, boys and girls, great stuff today. Thanks for all the interaction. I know that Rick Hamilton was checking in late on the Bucks and saying they might be an average team now after starting off hot, just 11-8 over the last 19. I won't go that far, but Rick, thanks for checking in. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy some awesome football. Chad and I are back bright and early on Monday morning. See ya.